Lucky Luciano was one of the most powerful crime bosses in American history. He did not just run a gang. He helped build a national crime system that lasted for decades. He was born in 1897 in Sicily, Italy. His real name was Salvatore Lucania. When he was a child, his family moved to New York City. They settled in a poor neighborhood on the Lower East Side. Life there was hard. Crime was everywhere. Violence was normal. As a boy, Luciano quickly learned how to survive. He joined street gangs. He learned to fight. He learned how to make money through crime. He protected younger kids from bullies for a price. By his teenage years, he was already involved in organized crime. He worked with other young criminals who would later become powerful figures. He was smart, calm, more focused than others. Everything changed during Prohibition in the 1920s. Alcohol was illegal across the United States, but millions of people still wanted it. Luciano saw opportunity. He began running bootlegging operations. He smuggled alcohol. He built networks. He made huge amounts of money. But Luciano was different from older crime bosses. He believed in organization. He believed crime should run like a business. At the time, gangs fought violent wars for power. Bosses killed each other to take control. Luciano saw this as bad for business. In 1931, he made his boldest move. He helped remove old leaders and reorganize the system. He created what became known as the Commission. It was a group of crime bosses who worked together instead of fighting. This changed organized crime forever. Luciano became the most powerful boss in America. He controlled gambling, bootlegging, prostitution, and other illegal businesses. He made millions of dollars. He lived in luxury. He was respected and feared, but his power attracted attention. In 1936, he was arrested and charged with running a large prostitution network. He was convicted and sentenced to 30 to 50 years in prison. Even behind bars, he still had influence. During World War II, the U.S. government secretly asked for his help. They wanted protection for American ports. Luciano agreed. In return, his sentence was reduced. In 1946, he was released from prison, but he was deported to Italy. He would never live in America again. He spent the rest of his life in exile, still respected, still feared. In 1962, Luciano died of a heart attack at age 64. Lucky Luciano did more than run crime. He built the structure of modern organized crime. His system lasted long after his death. He rose from a poor immigrant boy to the most powerful crime boss in America, and his shadow still remains in crime history. Jesse James became one of the most famous outlaws in American history. Some saw him as a criminal, others saw him as a hero, but his name became a legend of the Wild West. He was born in 1847 in the state of Missouri. He grew up on a farm with his family. Life was simple at first, but everything changed when the Civil War began. Missouri became a violent place during the war. Neighbor fought neighbor. Families were divided. Young Jesse joined a Confederate guerrilla group. He learned how to fight. He learned how to survive. When the war ended, Jesse returned home, but peace did not bring him a new life. Instead, he turned to crime. He joined his brother Frank and formed a gang. They robbed banks. They robbed trains. They moved fast and disappeared quickly. Jesse became known for his bold attacks. He showed no fear. He planned carefully. He trusted only a few people. Newspapers began writing about him. Some stories made him look like a hero, a man fighting against powerful banks and railroads. The public became fascinated with him, but the law saw him differently. He was a dangerous criminal, wanted across the United States. For years, he escaped capture. He changed names. He hid in safe houses. He trusted his gang, but trust would lead to his end. In 1882, Jesse lived under a false name in Missouri. He believed he was safe. He trusted a man named Robert Ford. One day, Jesse stood on a chair to fix a picture on the wall. His gun was off. His guard was down. Ford shot him in the back of the head. Jesse James died at just 34 years old. His death shocked the nation. Some called him a villain. Others called him a legend. Jesse James became a symbol of the Wild West, a man who lived by the gun and died by betrayal. His story still lives on today. Billy the Kid was one of the most famous outlaws of the Wild West. He was young, fast, and deadly. Some saw him as a cold killer. Others saw him as a rebel fighting to survive. But his name became a legend across the American frontier. He was born in 1859, likely in New York City. His real name was Henry McCarty, though he later used the name William Bonney. His childhood was difficult. His father died early. His mother struggled to raise him. They moved west, hoping for a better life, but hardship followed them. In 1874, his mother died of illness. Billy was only 15 years old. He was alone. With no family and no support, he turned to the streets. At first, he committed small crimes, stealing food, stealing clothes, trying to survive. But soon, his life became more dangerous. He joined groups of outlaws and ranch fighters. This led him into the Lincoln County War in New Mexico. It was a violent conflict between rival business groups. Billy fought with one side. He learned to use guns. He learned to kill. During the conflict, several men were shot and killed. Billy became known as a skilled gunfighter. He moved quickly. He stayed calm under pressure. The law began hunting him. Billy lived on the run. He hid in towns. He hid in the desert. He depended on friends and sympathizers. In 1880, he was finally captured by Sheriff Pat Garrett. Billy was put on trial and sentenced to hang. But Billy was not finished. In 1881, he made a daring escape. He killed 2 guards and fled into the night. His escape made him even more famous. The entire region searched for him. Just months later, Pat Garrett found him again. On July 14, 1881, Garrett entered a dark room in Fort Sumner. Billy was inside. Garrett fired his gun. Billy the Kid died at only 21 years old. His life was short, but his legend grew larger after his death. Stories spread across the country. Books were written. Movies were made. Billy the Kid became the symbol of the Wild West. A young outlaw, a fast gun, a life lived on the edge. And more than a century later, his name is still remembered. Osama bin Laden became one of the most wanted men in modern history. He was the face of global terrorism, and he was responsible for attacks that shocked the entire world. He was born in 1957 in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. His family was extremely wealthy. His father owned a large construction company. Osama grew up with comfort and privilege, but his life took a different path. In the 1980s, war broke out in Afghanistan after the Soviet Union invaded. Bin Laden traveled there. He helped fund and support fighters. He built connections with militant groups. This experience changed him. He began to see himself as a leader in a larger cause. He believed he was fighting powerful enemies. In 1988, he founded Al-Qaeda. This group would later carry out deadly attacks around the world. Throughout the 1990s, Al-Qaeda grew stronger. They planned bombings. They targeted American interests. Bin Laden became the mastermind behind these operations. Then came September 11, 2001. On that morning, hijacked planes crashed into buildings in the United States. 2 planes hit the World Trade Center in New York. Another hit the Pentagon. Nearly 3,000 people were killed. The world watched in shock. Bin Laden quickly became the most wanted man alive. The US government launched a massive manhunt. They invaded Afghanistan to destroy Al-Qaeda and find him. But Bin Laden disappeared. For years, he stayed hidden. He moved between safe houses. He avoided phones and technology. He knew he was being hunted. The search lasted nearly 10 years. Finally, in 2011, US intelligence found him in Abbottabad, Pakistan. He was hiding in a heavily guarded compound. On May 2, 2011, US Navy SEALs launched a secret raid. They entered the building at night. They found Bin Laden inside. He was shot and killed. His death marked the end of one of the largest manhunts in history. Osama bin Laden changed the course of global events. His actions led to wars, new security laws, and lasting fear. He rose from wealth and privilege to become the most hunted terrorist in the world. And his impact is still felt today. How did one man become the most powerful criminal in America? How did he rule a city without being the mayor? His name was Al Capone, and for years, he controlled Chicago through fear, money, and violence. He was born in 1899 in Brooklyn. His parents were poor immigrants from Italy. He grew up in a tough neighborhood. Crime was everywhere. Violence was normal. Capone joined gangs at a young age. He was smart. He was fearless. And he quickly earned a reputation. Everything changed in 1920. The US government banned alcohol. This period was called Prohibition. Selling alcohol became illegal, but people still wanted to drink. Capone saw an opportunity. He moved to Chicago. There, he joined powerful crime groups. Soon, he took control of the city's illegal alcohol business. He made millions of dollars. Capone built an empire. He ran illegal bars. He controlled gambling. He ran prostitution rings, and he used violence to stay in power. His enemies often disappeared. Some were shot in the streets. Others were never found. The most famous attack came in 1929. It became known as the St. Valentine's Day Massacre. 7 men from a rival gang were lined up and shot. The killers wore police uniforms. The message was clear: Capone was in charge, but his power made him famous. Newspapers wrote about him every day. Some people feared him. Others admired him. He lived like a king. He wore expensive suits. He stayed in luxury hotels. He spent money freely, but the government was watching. Police could not prove most of his crimes. Witnesses were too afraid to talk. So they tried something different. They investigated his money. In 1931, Capone was arrested, not for murder, not for violence, but for tax evasion. He was sentenced to 11 years in prison. It was the end of his empire. He was later sent to Alcatraz. There, he lost his power. He lost his influence. He was no longer the king of Chicago. After his release, he was a broken man. His health had declined. His criminal empire was gone. He died in 1947. Al Capone rose from poverty, become the most feared gangster in America. He controlled a city. He built a criminal empire. But in the end, money made him powerful, and money brought him down. How did a quiet immigrant become the brain behind America's biggest crime empire? How did a man who rarely used violence control millions of dollars in illegal business? His name was Meyer Lansky, and he became known as the man who built organized crime from the shadows. He was born in 1902 in Poland. His family was poor and Jewish. They faced discrimination and danger. When he was still a child, they moved to New York City for a better life. But the streets were harsh. Lansky grew up in tough neighborhoods. He was small, but very smart. He understood numbers better than most adults. He saw opportunity where others saw chaos. As a teenager, he met Lucky Luciano. This friendship changed everything. Together, they built powerful criminal networks. They ran gambling operations. They made money from alcohol during Prohibition. They worked with gangs from different backgrounds. This was new. Before Lansky, gangs stayed separate. He helped unite them. He believed crime should be run like a business. Organized, efficient, profitable. Soon, Lansky became the financial genius of the mafia. He invested in casinos. He moved money across countries. He helped create gambling empires in Las Vegas. But his biggest success was in Cuba. There, he built luxury casinos and hotels. Tourists came from all over America. Money flowed endlessly. Lansky became incredibly rich. But unlike other gangsters, he stayed quiet. He wore simple clothes. He avoided attention. He rarely showed emotion. He was called the mob's accountant. But everything changed in 1959. The Cuban Revolution destroyed his casinos. He lost millions overnight. Soon, the US government began investigating him. They suspected tax crimes, illegal money, organized crime connections. But proving it was difficult. Lansky was careful. He hid his tracks well. In his later years, he lived quietly. His power slowly faded. He died in 1983 at age 80. Meyer Lansky never ruled with violence. He ruled with intelligence. He did not pull the trigger. He followed the money, and in the world of organized crime, that made him one of the most powerful men alive. How did a street criminal become the most famous mafia boss in America? How did one man turn crime into celebrity? His name was John Gotti, and he became known as the Teflon Don. He was born in 1940 in New York City. His family was poor. He grew up in crowded neighborhoods. Crime was everywhere. Gotti left school early. He joined street gangs as a teenager. He stole cars. He robbed trucks. He wanted respect. He wanted power. Soon, he joined the powerful Gambino crime family. This was one of the biggest mafia groups in America. Gotti proved himself quickly. He was fearless. He was loyal. He was dangerous. In 1985, everything changed. The Gambino boss, Paul Castellano, was shot and killed outside a restaurant. Many believed Gotti ordered the hit. Soon after, Gotti became the new boss. But he was different. He did not hide. He wore expensive suits. He smiled at cameras. He talked to reporters. The media loved him. They called him the Dapper Don. Police arrested him many times, but he kept winning in court. Witnesses stayed silent. Evidence disappeared. That is why people called him the Teflon Don. Things seemed to stick, but his luck did not last forever. In 1990, the FBI finally caught him. They had secret recordings. They had witnesses. They had proof. In 1992, Gotti was found guilty of murder and other crimes. He was sentenced to life in prison. His empire was over. He died in prison in 2002. John Gotti wanted fame. He wanted power. For a time, he had both. But in the end, even the most famous mafia boss could not escape justice. How did a quiet religious scholar become the leader of the world's most feared terror group? How did one man build a so-called caliphate? His name was Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, and his rise brought war and fear across the Middle East. He was born in 1971 in Baghdad. As a young man, he studied Islam. He was quiet. He stayed out of trouble. No one expected what he would become. Everything changed after the Iraq War in 2003. The country fell into chaos. Violence spread everywhere. Baghdadi joined extremist groups. He quickly gained power. By 2010, he became the leader of ISIS. He was patient. He was careful. He planned everything. In 2014, he shocked the world. ISIS captured large parts of Iraq and Syria. Baghdadi declared himself caliph. He claimed to rule all Muslims. His group used fear as a weapon. They carried out executions. They destroyed cities. Millions fled their homes. The world responded. The United States and its allies launched attacks. ISIS began to lose land. Its power slowly collapsed. In 2019, Baghdadi was found hiding in Syria. U.S. forces surrounded him. He had no escape. He died during the raid. His caliphate was over. Baghdadi once ruled millions through fear, but in the end, his empire disappeared, and his reign ended in hiding.